Last week I accidentally left you guys with the cliffhanger, and it was an actual accident. So, can I have a kiss? No kiss for... There we go. Let's get unbothered.
Everything bothers him.
He's unbothered.
He calls it unbothered, but that's what's cute because everything bothers him. He's bothered. I'm a botherina.
Are you not comfy? There you go. Let's get you comfy. What's up, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Unbothered by Ty Rivera. That's right, it's Unbothered by Ty Rivera. I'm your host, Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. All right, you guys. So here's the deal. The accident was, and thank you for pointing it out in the comments. I do appreciate it, and I'm not being sarcastic. I know I sound like I'm always being sarcastic. It's just, it's a blessing and a curse. It works really well for comedy, but this is my natural voice, and I will tell you that I put absolutely no effort into my personality. I tell people all the time, or used to tell people all the time on social media, like, the trick to being me is not trying at all. Like, that's what people don't get. So when you see people in my comments on social media or even on YouTube and they're like, oh, you're trying so hard, it's like, no, I'm not trying at all. That's what the problem is. That's what pisses a lot of people off. I just, I've been doing stand-up for so long, and I've been living my own way for so long now, that I don't ever think about, like, what's acceptable to a lot of people. I was raised well, and so I don't really have to worry about not behaving or, like, being completely classless or anything like that. But not to get distracted, because I want to tell you guys at the beginning what the cliffhanger was and what I did wrong. On the last video, I said that I was going to update you guys on my parking, which, for anybody that's not familiar, I was having a problem with the parking here at my apartment because birds were pooping all over my car and walking on it as well and leaving scratches. Puppy, stop, please. She's over here having a wrestling match with my arm, and it's cool for a minute, but it's like after a while, I gotta concentrate and be able to talk about what I need to talk about. I mean, I love this little dog, but she picks the worst times to want to play with me sometimes. And it's like, I literally block off times to play with her. And I will set a time, because I read online that 10 minutes at a time is a good amount to play with your dog, because after they get kind of bored and, they're like, okay, well, I'm tired of you throwing this rope for me or whatever I decide to throw, because she has a lot of toys, and I bought a lot more over the last couple of weeks, because I keep going to the store, and then when I'm at the store, I'll always, it's like when you were little, I don't know if you guys were like this when you were little, but when I was little, my mom used to, like, if we went to Kmart, was like one of the big stores when I was little, growing up in the town I grew up in. Believe it or not, Kmart was like one of the anchor stores at the mall of the town that I grew up, the Casa Grande Mall. And so my mom, if she needed to get stuff, I would always ask her if I could go to the toys, and so she would right away let me go to the toy section. And so I think that's kind of still stuck in my behavior, or my like the way I do things, except for now, instead of going to the toy section, I go to the pet section. And so almost every store I go to, I end up going to the pet section. And sometimes there's nothing there. I'm not just a person that's buying things just to buy them. Sometimes there's absolutely nothing to buy. But then sometimes I'm like, this is a really cool toy, and I know that this is her vibe, and so I'll buy it. But what I was getting at is with the parking situation. Some of you guys asked me what ended up happening, because last week I said I was going to talk about it. And luckily, and this is a knock on wood situation, but what's happening right now is, or what happened was, a couple days after I posted that, she ended up approaching me when I was walking outside. And it was early, and I wasn't in the mood to see her or talk to anybody, because a lot of people don't realize early for you is late for me. So if you talk to me at like 9 a.m., which I think was around when she talked to me, that is the end of my night. If you see me up at 9 a.m., I either have a very important appointment that I had to have at that time because I didn't have any other times, because usually I ask for 2 p.m. or after if I have an appointment that I get to be fully in charge of. Or I've been up all night editing and now I'm finally done. And so I'm, winding down basically because I have to go smoke a cigarette off the property because there's no smoking allowed on this property and I'm not going to quit smoking. And so, what happened was she approached me and she said, the manager or the owner wants me to take everything down. And so she was like, so I'm thinking about, and she told me what her plan was. And it was like taking down everything except for these side strips that I have of the reflector strips to keep the birds away from my car. And then I said, can you do me a favor and leave a couple in the front and a couple in the back? Because right now I have no birds landing on my car ever and no bird poop on my car. And I would like to try as hard as possible to keep that exactly like it is as far as me not having any birds. So I don't mind if you take some of them off, but if you can leave that side that you're saying you're going to leave, and then a couple in the front and a couple in the back, which means that there's none on the right side. But the right side, it's very unlikely. And I was still unsure if that was going to work. And I was kind of sweating it because honestly, if there did continue to be birds pooping on my car and walking on my car, I would just have to leave. That's what it is. And I think that they sense that that's where it's going. And it's not about trying to flex on them. Or I don't live that kind of life. Like sometimes people make that mistake with me too, because I will be very firm about certain things. And most things I don't care about. And I think that's part of what shocks people about me when they're dealing with me. Like not you guys, because I pretty much just relay to you what it is I think, or the way it is or why it is I behave the way that I do. But I think that because I'm so passive about so many things, because it just a lot of things don't really bother me or affect my life. I'm not like one of those people that's always looking for something to be offended by, or somebody's like, I've talked about this before when it comes to like identity politics, or however that would affect me, being gay and brown and whatever. I'm not the guy that's going to be like, oh, people are so racist. People are so homophobic. I know they did this because I'm brown. I know they did this because I have tattoos. I know they did this. Sometimes that will be the case. And I'm very quick about calling that out right there in the moment. I don't need to come to the internet for that. I can just tell you right away what it is you're doing, and you can either correct the behavior. Like today I had it happen. So anyway, let me just wrap that up really quick. I did the parking so far, knock on wood, like I said, the birds have stayed away from my car all the way. And so they took some off. So those others I'm going to assume were unnecessary. And we are at a good compromise as far as I go. It feels good to me. So as long as they don't come back with any like, we got to take more off, which I doubt they will. I think that they're just going to leave it alone. Then we should have no problems. And, I'm just trying to keep it so I don't have to deal with them on any level until my lease is up. And then once my lease is up, I'll give them their notice like they need, and we'll have done good business, in my opinion. And then I will write them a good Google review, because overall, if nothing else happens, then my living here will have been a good situation. That's one thing I've noticed with a lot of people lately, and I'm sure a lot of you have noticed that too, but everybody wants you to leave a Google review now, or a Yelp review. People want you to review them. And I do give very good reviews when I give reviews. I don't give reviews on a lot of things because a lot of times I don't have a lot to say about things and it doesn't occur to me. But I have noticed that there is a lot of people that are asking you to give reviews before any service has been performed. And so when people ask me that, I'm just like, no, I'm not going to leave a review. And I won't say that to them. I just like in my head say no. But I will tell them, yeah, I'll leave a review, at some point, because I will. Like if they ask me, and especially because, with this building itself, they gave me a card with a QR code to their, Google reviews. And so But like I noticed that for a lot of people that does work when they ask them to do that, because I saw on the reviews for this building, people were like, I haven't even moved in yet and this place is absolutely great. Well, why would you do that? That's not a good, like, the fact that somebody can be nice to you when they're trying to get you to sign and commit to a year-long lease, which means a year's worth of your money. Of course they're going to say everything you want to hear. That's how I got in here, was she made it seem like everything was just like, I don't know if I told you guys this, but there was a point where they were having to do different things here. Like, it was like an inspection. And before I ever moved in, because I record content, and when it comes to recording content, I'll record at any time I feel like recording. So right now I'm recording this at 3 a.m. It's 3:04 a.m. is what time it is. I just decided I wanted to do it now. This is when it felt right. This is when I had time for it. And you guys see, it's just, I don't do edits. So it's just an hour of me talking, just straight up me talking. And so you have to be in the mood for that in order to do it, or else it's not going to come out good. You know, I mean, like, I've had times where I've tried to force myself to do it and I end up scrapping it, is what I do. Like, if I record one of these, I don't care if I spend an hour recording it. If I record it and I don't feel good about it, like I don't feel like I was in any kind of flow, I felt like I was too, like, I'm always going to be like, you know, kind of erratic in my speaking style and, you know, just jump all over the place. And some people call it ADD. And I guess it is, you know, because it's like, if you were to talk to me in real life, my little sister is probably the most obnoxiously honest person with me in my life. And I don't get to talk to her all the time, but when I talk to her, that's one of those relationships that I don't need to do any maintenance on it, and neither does she, because we are so close in that she, when she was being born, or when my mom was pregnant with her, I could not wait for her to come out, because my mom refused to find out what her sex was, you know, the sex of the baby, ahead of time. And so we were going off of wives' tales, because my mom didn't want to know. She was like, when they get here, they'll get here, you know? And I was really hoping for a little brother, because I already had two older sisters and they used to lock me out of the room and I would cry, you know, because I wanted to play with them. But they were doing girl stuff and it was no boys allowed, that kind of thing. And like, looking back on it, I don't feel any way about it. At the time, I hated it. I remember, you know, crying outside of their door and wanting to play with them. And my dad, like, you know, checking me a little bit, just being like, they're girls. Leave the girls alone. Let them do girl stuff. You're a boy. Like, go out and play with your friends. And I did have enough friends and stuff. And then I had a lot of toys. And so, you know, none of this is sob story, is my point. It's just what it was. But I could not wait to have a little brother. And that's what we were going off as wives' tales. And my mom was holding low, I think it was, you know, whatever it was, people were telling her, like, you know, that's going to be a boy. And then she was like extra big. So that was another thing that had people thinking that it was going to be a boy. And, you know, my mom, I think, just liked giving me hope. And so she was like, you know, thought it was going to be my little brother. And so I was super excited about having a little brother. And then when I got here, when she got here, I had a little sister. And my child mind was just like, that's going to be my brother anyway. And so I raised her like my brother. Obviously, my mom did the raising. I didn't have an absentee mother in any way. But like, you know, I was always hanging out with her and playing with her and wrestling with her. And like, I really did raise her like she was my brother. And for anybody that's wondering, she's not like lesbian or anything. It's not like, you know, I had that much of an influence on her. She's a girly girl. When she grew into what she grew into, it was all very natural. Like, when she was little with me and we were playing all the time, she was a little boy, you know, or like a tomboy type. And then she just grew into being a girl, and she has a regular life, and she's actually pretty successful, and I'm very proud of her. And but so because we were that close when we were growing up, we didn't like, I don't have to keep any kind of maintenance with that situation. We don't have to talk any particular amount of time. When we do talk, it's great. We're silly. We text each other every once in a while. That's what most of our interaction is, you know, because we used to watch the same movies obviously when we were young, and so we do a lot of movie quotes and send each other memes and gifs and stuff like that, you know, is what it is. But she's obnoxiously honest with me, and so when I'll be telling her a story, because you guys see how I am, I jump around and I tell, she'll like yell at me, "Well, you just finished the damn story already? The story's taking forever." And I'm just like, well, I'm trying. And like, you know, one time a lady on social media was trying to insult me and she called me a himbo. And this was like several years ago, before, like, now a lot of gay men say they want to be himbos or whatever. I've been a himbo since I was 19 years old. So forever I've been a himbo. And my sister has always called me a himbo. And so this lady was trying to insult me on social media, and she was like, "Yeah, you himbo." And then I was just like, my sister called me a himbo. That's actually a good memory for me. And it really did piss her off. That's what makes a lot of people mad at me on social media, is I really don't have triggers, so people can tell me anything they want. They want to talk to me about plastic surgery, if they want to talk to me about piercings, if they want to talk to me about tattoo, like any of the stuff, because I don't mean talk to me. Usually they try to insult me by bringing that stuff up. And I don't have any hangups about any of what I've done to myself at this point. Like, when I first, you know, when I got the silicone when I was younger, because I had silicone and I had it scraped out, for anybody that hasn't heard that story or whatever. And it was a real process where they had to, like, basically do facelift incisions. They had to, and this was 13 years ago now that they did it. And so they have to do the same incisions as a facelift. And so I have scars, like, I don't know if you can see them right now, but I used to be weird about that too. Like, I used to, like, try to not show them, and so I wouldn't get fades, but like I can feel the track of one right there, you know. But when I had that silicone injected, I did hate that. But now, even though they weren't able to get all of it, they were able to get most of it. And so now I'm happy that it's gone. And so I don't have any feelings about that. And, you know, like, there will be people sometimes that say things like, you know, you messed up your face and whatever else. And it's like, you know what? I've had such a great life, and it hasn't impeded my dating life, and it hasn't made people that I'm attracted to think that I'm unattractive. If anything, the people that I really want usually really want me too. And that's more than a lot of people can say. You know, like, like, I've noticed that in life, there are a lot of people that feel like they never get or got the people that they actually wanted. And I don't know if I'm just good at picking, or if I'm just good at putting out the energy that I want, or the energy for the thing that I want, the person that I want. I shouldn't say thing in that context, but you guys get me. But I've, through my whole life, had the guys that I actually wanted. Like, when I have wanted to date anybody, and I haven't done any conniving type things. One thing I will be honest about is, if I really like somebody, I'm not at all afraid to be romantic, or you know, even, because, like, usually, for the way that it goes for me is, I'll like somebody, and then they have to, because I'll do my passive part of letting them know. You know, like, when they talk to me, I'll definitely engage with them more than I would the average person. And I'll put out the vibes, like, you know, if you like me, then I'm here. I'm here for it, you know? So I will do that. But then they have to make the actual move in, like, asking me out on a date, or, like, make a physical move to, like, kiss me or something like that. And also that, I don't have a problem with that either. Like, because sometimes I have had a few people in my life either read me wrong or just decide that they were going to shoot their shot anyway. I don't have a problem with that. But there have been times where I've had people that I'm really not attracted to make a move on me. And as long as they're good about the fact that I politely decline, because I'm not mean to people. A lot of people think I would be. But, here's the deal with me, like on Grindr specifically, which I haven't been on Grindr for quite a while now. Like, I have it on my phone still, but I haven't logged on to Grindr. But the deal with me is a lot of trans women are attracted to me on Grindr. Like they really go for me. And because of some of the videos I make, but at the same time, I've had trans friends my entire adult life. So I'm not the kind of person that automatically assumes a trans person is a particular way, but I'm just not attracted to them. And especially if they're a really pretty trans person, because then in a lot of cases they look like women and I'm obviously gay. And for me, it's not just about your parts when it comes to hooking up with somebody or being attracted to somebody. It's not just about you having the equipment that goes with being a male. To me, I am attracted to males. You don't have to be particularly masculine. You don't have to be a particular height and weight or any of that. Like I'm not that guy. But you do have to be a male or a male presenting man. That's what I need. And so that's what I'm attracted to. But like I said, you can be on the feminine side. You can wear a little bit of makeup. I've dated guys like that have worn eyeshadow, nail polish in certain cases. But just as long as you're not giving me too much like female vibes and you're not like, enhanced to look like a woman, breast, hip injections, but that whole thing doesn't do it for me. But when they hit me up on Grindr, because that will happen, I will tell them that they're too pretty for me, which is true, and even if they're not particularly pretty or passable or whatever, I'll tell them that, or I'll just be like, yeah, I'm just not into girls. And so, because to me, like, some people would get mad about that. And I know this, and I've been through it with like the people that consider themselves TERFs, which I don't think a lot of people at this point realize what TERF has turned into. And I'm going to make a video about that for my main channel, because I do get into it with the TERFs sometimes, because me and the TERFs used to be completely cool and I used to support them quite a bit. And I've helped a lot of their causes with, videos that have gotten thousands and thousands of views. Like some of my videos that have been about trans and protecting women and that kind of stuff, because that I will always be down for, is protecting women. But that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to adopt an entire ideology, which is what TERF has turned into, It's turned into an actual ideology, and it's, the complete opposite of trans. And anytime you ask a person like me to go to an actual extreme, it's probably not going to work out, because I'm an independent thinker. And once I meet people person to person, I judge each person on what they actually are, what their energy is, what they give me, what I feel off of them. That's what I judge people off. Their behavior, obviously, their character. And so I'm not going to lie to you ever and be like, I would never be friends with another trans person, or like even people that I don't necessarily completely agree with, I can be friends with and be friendly with. There's certain topics that we just won't really go into, and that's just to avoid arguments, and also because sometimes it's just not necessary. But if they were to outright ask me, then I would be honest with them about that too. And so I don't and so TERFs will sometimes get mad at me, but what I'm referring to right here is when I said girls, when I tell the trans women on Grindr that I'm not into girls, I don't feel at all weird about saying that, because I'm not defining them as females. Like I've told you before, like my gay friends, Thomasina and Derequisha, like a lot of times we joke and call each other girls, what's up ladies, what's up girls, like on the group chat or when we talk in person. And so I don't care about words like that, but I do think that a woman, the actual term Woman is a very specific thing. If I say a trans woman, I don't have a problem with that term either, because the trans tells you that that's not actually a woman. Just like I'm not going to get weird about Coke and Diet Coke. Diet Coke is Diet Coke. I do not drink Diet Coke. Coke is Coke. I drink Coke. But that doesn't mean I'm like, that's not a Coke. It's like, it's a Diet Coke. You're right. It's not a Coke. There's nothing to argue about. And so sometimes the TERFs will get mad at me about that because I think I'm supposed to draw the same lines they do. But just like I don't tell anybody else to talk, I'm not going to have anybody tell me how to talk. And that's what no group understands about me, is I really am my own thing in that way. So I'm not going to like suddenly adopt your entire ideology because you've decided I'm either with you or against you. Well, that's for you to decide. And if you decide, because I don't speak exactly the way that you want me to speak, that I'm against you, then you might be right. I might be against you because I firmly believe that I should be able to talk and think and express myself the way that I express myself. But my point with all this, it always takes me forever to get anywhere, and I'm beginning to see why my little sister yells at me all the time. She beats me. She hits me. I've never talked about this publicly. She hits me. That's why she doesn't hit me. But the thing that I was getting at is I have had guys try to make a move on me, and it turned out they weren't picking up the right vibe for me. But I'm comfortable with that too. Like, one guy I had to really let him know what he was doing one night though, and I did it in a funny way. But what happened was he offered to walk me to my car. And this was like several years ago. I want to say, well, goddamn, I'm old. Probably like 20 years ago. And I was leaving my friend's party. Robert and Jesse, who I told you guys about last week, the one that got his identity stolen, and they opened up credit cards in his name. And I asked him if he was if he congratulated them. They were having one of their late night gatherings. And so it was super late, and there was a bunch of guys there, a bunch, maybe that's a lie. Maybe like 10 guys there. And it was one of the nights where Robert invited us over because he was going to be frying up some chicken. And so, we went over, and, there was this cholo guy, and he looked like a cholo. Like if you saw him, you would assume he was a gangbanger. You wouldn't assume he was gay, but he just wasn't my type, and but I had seen him around quite a bit because we used to go to the same bars and stuff like that, and so I was comfortable enough with him. And while we were all hanging out together at that gathering, I was being cool with everybody, and we were all having good time, smoking, drinking, that kind of stuff. And so it gets to the end of the night, and I was like, said my goodbyes, and he offered to walk me to my car. And I didn't need to be walked to my car. So I was like, I'm cool. And then he was like, no, I'll walk you to your car. And in my mind, I was like, well, isn't he chivalrous? So, because in my mind, I'm super condescending, even though I'll be outwardly polite in certain cases. In my mind, I'm always like, okay, well, apparently I'm the lady here, so I guess I'm getting walked to my car. And so he walks me to my car. At the time, I had a Jeep Grand Cherokee, so not technically a car, an SUV. So he walks me to my vehicle, and he's saying goodnight to me, when I close my door, and I'm being cool. And then he goes to kiss me, like through my open window, because I was like, thank you, have a good night, blah, 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 thank you for walking me in my car. And so he leans in to kiss me. And I, just slightly go back, sort of like, recoiling, but trying not to do it in a rude way. Because I'm so not gassed up by that kind of stuff. I'm just not I didn't feel like, oh, he's so into me or whatever. Like, it wasn't like that kind of thing. So I wasn't trying to come off like ew, or I just wasn't interested, and I wasn't gonna kiss him. And so what he did was he reached into my car and grabbed the back of my head. And he's a pretty decent sized guy, and he like starts pulling my head, like literally pulling my head. And it's just me and him in this parking lot. And my head is getting closer to him, and he's mistaking this for like maybe being romantic or forcing, which I didn't feel threatened. It's not like I felt, like whatever, like I was scared, or, I thought he was going to be able to. But I did, as he was pulling me closer. And when we got like, about that close right there, I just went ahead and said, rape. And then he was like, oh, that's effed up. That's effed up. And I was like, well, it's what you're doing. And he laughed and I laughed. And then he was like, I don't remember how he said exactly his exact words. Like I said, this is like 20 years ago. So I don't remember his exact words, but he did say something like, I was out of line, or I shouldn't have done that, or whatever. And, outside of telling it like this in a very anonymous way, because, I don't even know if he's, sorry, I have something on my shirt. I don't even know if he's still in Phoenix anymore. I haven't seen him since, during those days. I saw him again after that, just at the club in the same way I used to see him before. But I haven't seen him in years and years and years, and I have a bad memory, so I don't even know if I'd recognize him now, but it was never weird between us after that. And I appreciated that he understood that he was out of line and that he stopped. And so I never told people, or I didn't make it a big deal, and I honestly, I don't feel in that instance, because I think there's times that you should tell people about that, like if somebody really does cross the line, because at that point it's kind of like public service, especially if you're not doing it in like a gossipy way, if you're just letting people know like, hey, this person did this particular thing to me and I hope they don't do it to anybody else. But I didn't get the feeling that that was really like, I think he had just maybe been drinking a little more than he should, and maybe a little bit more buzzed, and read the situation wrong and just tried to force a kiss, but like I said, I didn't feel like he was going to do anything like terrible or whatever. But like when I said that, he got, like I said, he got a good laugh out of it, and so did I. And so it was just like, no big deal. I'm just not gonna kiss you, but I'm gonna be gone now, and I appreciate you giving me, or walking me to my car, and I'll see you later. And then I took off, But what I was saying is, it's always gets back to what I was saying, because I try to keep a track. I try to stay somewhat on course when I'm talking, even if I take a million U-turns and, bust a bunch of lefts, and sometimes 3 rights to make a left. But, like you have to be the one that kind of makes the move after I've already like put the vibes out there. And then, once you make the move, then if we both are on the same page, then I'm completely down to like, especially once we get going, you know what I mean? Like if we actually hook up and spend time together and start kind of dating or that kind of stuff, I'll be super romantic, and I will do, like, that's why I can't really date people that are under a certain age, like when it comes to like the Gen Z, which I've dated a few Gen Z people. And, in the past, like, when I was, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, because that's a lot of what's attracted to me, is like the 20 to 25 range. And like 20 is too young for me to date, but like the 24, 25, I dated a few guys that were 24 and 25. And the problem with them is they think because I look young for my age that I'm gonna behave like them, and that I'm gonna be into the things that they're into, and I'm just not. And their dating style is different for me. Like for me, a lot of what people would consider love bombing that are in those, like, millennial and Gen Z range. Like, for me, that's being romantic. Like, if a guy buys me flowers or balloons or any of that stuff, like, to me, that's them really letting me know that they like me. Now, would I prefer that they just take me out to a nice dinner or something like that? That's what I'd actually prefer, because while flowers are nice on Valentine's Day, and I'll buy people flowers. I've bought plenty of people flowers, but I'll buy them flowers and take them to dinner as well. But I feel like in a lot of cases it's a waste of money. I mean, like, flowers, sure, like at the beginning, if you buy me flowers, that's cool. But like once we get into our relationship or like start really being together on any level, then I prefer that flowers not be the thing. I guess every once in a while balloons are okay. I don't know. I just would rather people that like me not really waste money on things like that, And like, even if people have a particular amount of money, which that's like another thing about me. When I was younger, a lot of people with money were very attracted to me, and still that's the case. And, I think it's because, with all of what's going on here, I think that people get an idea that there has been some money spent, and they're not wrong. But I think that, like, that also attracts a particular like level sometimes. But I've never worried about that. And the guys that I've dated, one thing that really did bother me was when me and my ex-fiance were breaking up, and he was, on a particular phone call, like, saying that his family had told him that I was a gold digger anyway, and they could tell and stuff like that. And I was really dumbfounded, and I eventually had to tell him, because at this point he was really trying to like come for me, and I had to tell him, like, you don't have any money. Like, I don't know why you and your family would think I would be after you for money when I was paying for everything. Like, this makes no sense. And especially the fact that you're telling me this, like, I don't know how our relationship worked. Like, you weren't able to pay your part of the rent, and I was charging you a third of the rent instead of half of the rent, because that's what you said you could pay, and then you weren't able to do that. And then I said, just go ahead and buy groceries. I'll pay the rent, and you can just be in charge of buying groceries. And then you didn't have enough money for the groceries. So I eventually started sneaking off to the store while you were at work, like I was having an affair, so that I wouldn't have to shame you in any way, or you didn't feel shame, because I noticed he would wince when we'd be at the grocery store. That's why I decided to start going to the grocery store while he was at work, was because I didn't want him to feel bad about himself that he wasn't able to pay for the groceries. And I could tell by the way that he would literally wince and, kind of, you could tell it was like, he didn't have the money. And I didn't want to make him feel bad about that. So I just started making it seem like going to the grocery store was, just an errand that I had to run while he was at the store. Oh, I needed such and such. So I just decided to go do it myself or whatever. And obviously I wouldn't ask him to, like, pay me back or give me the money for the groceries or whatever. So I started doing that, and it was like when we would go out, I would pay for that too. Like if we went out to dinner or that kind of thing. And, so it was especially insulting when we're breaking up for him to like start telling me that I was a gold digger and him and his family knew it when he didn't have any gold. Like, I would never, like, if there's one thing I'm good at, it's reading that particular part of like a person, I mean, like, because I was in S work for so long, and so I know when people have and don't have money. And I knew when I hooked up with him that he didn't have any kind of, like, I wasn't technically I thought he was in manual labor. That's what I thought that he did. And, and I, like I said, I was fine with it. I was raised so much not to think about that. Like, it's just not where I'm at. Like, my ideal version of being in a relationship with somebody at this point in my life, which is very similar to when I was with him like 6 years ago, 7 years ago now. Yeah, 7 years ago now, because it was like 2018, 2019 was when I was with him. And so, that was similar to my mindset then. And now it's like been to meet somebody, and I don't care what they have or don't have, but like actually build together, and somebody that can help me like do the things that I need to do and be what it is I need help with, and I do the same for them, and we literally build together, and whatever we come in with, whatever, but whatever we build to is what actually matters. And that's one of the things that I don't think a lot of people fully grasp with me. And that's one of the things that he didn't get with me, is like, it's fine if you don't make that much money, but what I need you to do is not give me extra headaches, and understand that I'm not always going to be able to be exactly where you want me to be, because I've got to be out making money. I've got to be out making connections, and I'm not going to spend, because when I'm into someone or I'm into something, I can't wait to get back to that person or that thing. Like, unfortunately, this little annoying dog that you see walking around right now, that's her messing with these, which she knows better. Now she's running over here again. She wants to go outside, but I hate to break it to her, she's going to have to wait. Besides, she's got a litter box, and she's fully litter box trained. And so if she's got to go to her box, she can go to her box. But right now, that's not happening. But there was a point where we were talking, and I had told him, when we were moving to Vegas, because I met him here in Phoenix, and then we decided to move to Vegas. And I told him literally before we left, I was like, I just want to do as much stand-up as possible. I know Vegas is a good opportunity right now, which at the time it was. Since then, the Vegas comedy scene has really collapsed. It never really got to anywhere to collapse from. It just sort of stayed with potential for a while, and then eventually I got like, okay, there's really no potential here, or there's really no like the potential coming to fruition here. But I had told him, like, this is a good opportunity. All I need is for you to, because at the time I had my puppy Bijou. And so I was like, all I need you to do is help me out with Bijou, and, continue to do your thing at your job, and let me build the way that I need to build. And then as soon as we get somewhere, we'll have the life that you want. We can go on vacation when you want to. We can do whatever, and he was fine with that. And then after we got to Vegas, literally after we got to Vegas, he told me that he wasn't fine with that. And so if anybody misled anybody in that relationship, it would have been him with me. And I don't say any of this because I hold on to it or whatever. I say it because it's pertinent to what we're talking about now. Because right now I can honestly say that I'm not looking for anything. But by the way, that guy that I told you guys about a while back, he ended up texting me literally tonight, which I'm not at all interested in him after, which I wasn't. I told you guys about that at the time. Like, he has all the the physical characteristics that would make him attractive. He is an attractive guy, but for some reason, and maybe if I met him in person, because we've just been chatting through text, and I saw him in real life once, and he saw me, but he didn't realize it was me. It was it turned out that because we were talking on Grindr, and then this was months ago now, and I went to the grocery store to fill up my water. And like I tell you guys, I have a terrible memory, and I'm not great with remembering faces, but this particular guy, he did strike me, seeing him did strike me like, oh, that's that's a guy. And I noticed him, and then I looked closer, and I was like, is that the guy that I chat with on Grindr? And I was filling up my 5-gallon water bottle. and he was on a break. He apparently works for the grocery store. So, like, a week or so later, when we were chatting again on Grindr, I was like, "Do you work at Fry's?" And then he was like, "Why do you ask that?" And I was like, "Because there was a guy that looked like you, or I thought he was you, outside of the Fry's, this particular." And then he was like, "Yeah, that was me." And then I was like, "Cool." But like I said, like, physically it's there, like the way that he looks, but I'm just not feeling it, So he hit me up tonight and was just like, "I miss texting you," because we haven't texted in probably at least a month and a half or something like that. And every once in a while it'll cross my mind that I hadn't like chatted with him in a while. But I'm not into leading people on. I don't really think that we would be particularly good friends, like just for hanging out. So I don't really know why I would bother just messaging him out of nowhere. And I appreciate the effort that he's made to try to get to know me, or to, set up some time hanging out or whatever. So, I'm not at all, again, it's not a situation where I feel like, that gives me some sort of power over him or anything like that. But it's just an odd one, because it's like he's trying so hard to like be cool with me, or in some way be in my life, but I can tell that what he wants is like, he's got a curiosity about hooking up with me. And I know that. And I know that that's like what his reason is for continuing to pursue me. But like, this is a weird thing for me, because it's like I've spent a lot of my life, just kind of being all over the place. Like, when it comes to actual relationships, I haven't been in a lot of actual relationships in my life. And most of them have been to some degree toxic, or they turn toxic at a point. And so, but now I feel like I'm at a point in my life where it would be easy enough for me to disengage from anything that does turn toxic. But I also feel like I'm because, you're always going to attract what you are. And that's what'll piss a lot of people off, is they want to always blame the other person. Like, when I think about like my ex-fiance, or any of the relationships that I ever talked to you guys about on this podcast, it's like, for me, it's not like a blaming thing, because there were red flags that I should have noticed. And when I say red flags, I'm not trying to like be like, "Oh, they were bad and I should have known it," or whatever. But there were places where I knew that, like, that could be a compatibility problem, where they were kind of letting on that they weren't doing like they were supposed to do, or going to be doing like they were supposed to do. But instead, I just went ahead and dismissed that, because everything else was there. Like, or I remembered better times. So when things got bad, my mind would go back to like, well, we'll get back to that part that we were at before. And a lot of times there's no going back. It's once that part is done, that was a phase of the relationship, and now you're just not there anymore. But now I feel like if I were to want to spend time with anybody, it would have to be a quality person that really just hit all marks naturally. Like, no, like, we need to talk about this particular thing. Yeah, later on down the line, that's a part of a relationship. You're always going to have like things where you need to kind of touch base again, or especially with what I do, because I can't just be under somebody all the time, or like, somebody can spend a lot of time with me, but there's always going to be a fair amount of time that I just have to be alone and doing what it is I do. But the I feel like, because people start getting older, and they start getting, in my opinion, in some cases, a lot more desperate, where they feel like, I could end up spending the rest of my life alone. And so they start making all these compromises. And I am the opposite, where I feel like I've been alone this long when it really comes down to it. Because since my ex fiance, I've dated enough people, like been seeing, and I don't think I've really had a relation. Well, I've had one relationship since then that's been like an actual, what you could call a relationship. It didn't last that long, but you could call it that. But I've had like little cute dating situations, whatever. But even that has been like 3 years probably since I've done that kind of thing, either 3 or 4 years. And so I just feel like I've been alone long enough that I don't really need, that I would rather just be alone. And if I should happen to meet anybody that really strikes me as being what it is I want, or having the potential to grow into what it is I want, then I definitely be open to that. But as far as me actively looking for that, or me like even being tuned into that when I go out, like, when I'm hanging out with my friends, usually I'm so focused on my friends that I really don't pay attention to people like that. Like, we'll notice people, like, he's cute, or that's that guy's hot, or whatever. But it's not like trying to put any kind of energy into that, and none of us are. Thomasina is seeing a guy right now that he's like, really enjoying spending time with, and I'm happy for that. I love when my friends find what it is they're looking for. Derek Quisha, on the other hand, is enjoying being single so much, and he's not particularly promiscuous or anything. He's just enjoying being single. He really is an outdoorsy guy, so he's got a few like women, straight women, that, not that it matters, but straight women that he hangs out with, that he'll go hiking with. They go to the mountains, they'll do outdoorsy stuff. And one day I'll end up joining him on some of that, when I have more time. It's just, in a lot of cases, he'll drive out to these locations, and then go hiking for a couple hours. And he does it on the weekends because he has a 9 to 5 type situation. But the way he'll do it is he'll, it'll be like a 5 or 6 hour part of his day where he, has to get there, go do the hike, and then drive back. And so, and a lot of times I'm editing on the weekends or doing that kind of stuff. So I haven't been able to join him, but I definitely will join him at some point. But because that's the way he lives, he's not really interested in being in a relationship, And so I think if he found the right guy that really got him and had the same interest in him as him, I think that he would be open to it. But it's just not something he thinks about at all. Where I guess you could say I'm more like, a little bit closer to the middle than Derek, because Derek Quisha is more thinking like, not at all. And I'm more like, if it happens, I'm down for it, because like, it would be nice to have somebody like help with, especially like a true partner, like my mom and dad. I've talked about them before, and my mom was a housewife, and like, to say that my mom showed me why people value wives, and if women are fortunate enough to be a housewife or even a house husband, when the woman is the more successful or more accomplished in the relationship and the man decides to work in the home. Like, seeing my mom is one of the reasons that I really respect that position. And I think that is because I can honestly say, from seeing it firsthand, and especially now that I'm older, because when you're younger, you don't really think about that stuff. Mom just does what she does, dad does what he does, and you're a kid and you're not thinking about it. But now that I'm older, and, and for several years now, I've really come to appreciate exactly how much my mom did for my dad, by making sure that he didn't have to worry about anything at home. Or, my dad didn't have to worry about doing his laundry. My mom used to iron his clothes. She made sure he looked good for meetings and, business and presenting himself. And my dad was good about doing all the stuff that he needed to do as far as working. And so when I look at what my parents were able to accomplish, and in large part because my mom was so good about doing her part, then, that will always be a standard and an ideal that I would look for. At this point, I got to be honest, I don't think I'm built to be the person that would be the wind beneath anybody's wings. Excuse me. Hantavirus, still fighting it. But yeah, I don't think I would be good at being the person that's at home. I get frazzled easy. Well, it's kind of funny that I say that, but I am both right now. I'm the person at home, and I gotta admit, my place is clean in spite of what this shirt that shouldn't be here would tell you. But I keep it together really well for myself. I have to cook when I want to cook, and then other than that, I buy myself food and I take care of my puppy. And my apartment's clean. It's not always spotless. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, but it's like I think most people would be impressed with the way I keep things together for it just being me and my little puppy, and not allowing things to get cluttered, and I continue to get better at all that stuff. And so it's weird that I say that, but I don't think that I could be the person that just completely, but I could use that person, you know what I mean? I could, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean like that would be a good addition to my life if I had somebody that really would help me, and if they had their own goals and independent of taking care of me, and we were able to make that work as well, it still would help lighten what it is I'm dealing with. So like I said, I would be open to that, but I'm also open to the fact that that might not happen. And I don't feel like because of my age that I should suddenly start making a bunch of compromises. If anything, this is the best time to either that finds me or I just sit it out. Because what I found is that those things usually end up being a waste of time when they're not meant for you. And I think that that's what age has taught me, is that you can ignore all the red flags you want, but eventually, between the arguing and the trying to make it work and the breaking up and getting back together in some cases, which I haven't been in one of those in quite a while, but those have happened in my life too, where you're the on again and off again. All that stuff wastes so much time, and it's so unnecessary that I just feel like if it doesn't work, if it's not working, then it's just better to cut your losses and accept that for being what it is, and not continue to try to force something that there always comes a point, and we've all been there if you've been in a relationship, or, if you've been in relationships, I should say. Some of you are lucky enough that you might have met the love of your life and then just stuck with that forever, which we have one of those. Tor on here met his wife, and then they're just good. That's what it is. And so that's great for the people that have ended up there. But for those of us who have been, in different relationships, no matter how much you've lied to yourself during those relationships, and we all have, so I don't say that in an accusatory way, but no matter how much you've lied, no matter how much you've avoided, no matter how much you've chosen to not pay attention to in any way, we've all known in those relationships at a particular point that this just is not going to work. So stay unbothered.